Next time when I'm there, I will definitely try that.
Marvelous.
All right, folks, we are live.
We're live. Hello, hello. It is Tuesday. It's 4:00 Pacific, where I am now in California. 7:00 on the East Coast, midnight in Dublin, 1 a.m. it's midnight in London, 1 a.m. in Milan and Warsaw and France, 1 a.m., 5:30 a.m. Wednesday morning in New Delhi, 10 a.m. Wednesday morning in Brisbane, and it's Facebook Live. Hello, everyone. Really nice to be with you again. And I'm going to begin with a shout out to the Benson family in Iowa. And I know little Gracie is sitting by the kitchen table watching right now. So hello, Gracie. Gracie is, I believe, tell me if I've got this right, 10 years old now, not quite 11, 10 years old. And she is adamant every week to watch and learn about how to help her family and her friends be healthier. So hello, Gracie. Nice to see that you're there. And tell us where you're from, everyone. As you say hello, please tell us where you're from so that we can see and our guests can see just how international we are today. And I'm really happy to welcome our guest here today. And it is Natalia Goncharova, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, thank you. And Natalia is in France tonight for her, it's evening. And she's from the Ukraine, and her team is mostly from the Ukraine. Now, I just had some guests visiting us from Ukraine, and Marzi and I, some friends of mine that came, and so I've heard some of the unfortunate tales of what's going on in Ukraine and how people are suffering. So in some unusual way, I'm really happy that you're here, Natalia, and that you are Ukrainian, and that we want to give a little shout out to everyone here. Please help support these people who, my friend's brother, they have no power, which means they have no water. And they have to walk 2.5 miles to get water because there's no gasoline to drive a car. And they have to walk 2.5 miles to get water in the winter and carry the water back for the children. And that's what my friend's brother is dealing with every day. So things are tough right now, really tough. So let's keep them in our prayers, please. And if something comes across your email to support Ukrainian refugees that are trying to stay alive, please give a little bit until it hurts. The more kindness we give in the world. I'm going to tell you something that happened yesterday for me as an example. I'm not bragging. I'm just trying to show you guys what we all can do. I went into a coffee shop in Encinitas, my own old hometown, in Southern California, where I am right now. And it was raining that day. And there was this obviously homeless woman in a long, bedraggled coat, soaking wet. Her hair was still dripping. And she was sitting there with a cup of coffee, her hands on it, just sipping and really enjoying each sip. And you can tell it was a big deal for her to have hot coffee. And her pants were soaked. And I just walked up to her and I said, hi. And she looked at me and I said, have you had anything to eat today? And she just looked at me and said, no. And I said, well, come on over here to the cash register. And she walked over and I put my hand on her shoulder and her coat soaking wet. And, it's cold. It's like in the 50s, maybe high 50s. And I said, what would you like to eat? And she just looked at me. And I said, no, it's okay. Do you want some eggs? And she, okay. And toast, do you want toast? She said, yeah. And I said, gluten-free? And she just looked, what? And she said, could I have sourdough? And so I said, yes, of course, with butter? Okay. So the gal at the cash register, give her, whatever she wants. And just put it on my bill. And this woman started to cry. She just started crying. That I suspect not many people are kind, you know, in our world. How many times do we walk past people that we know need some kind of help, but they're homeless? You know, we have this kind of disgusted first response to what we see. So, you know, next time you're driving on the freeway and you have to stop to pay a toll, pay for the car behind you, you know, and then just drive away. And that person will go up to pay, and the toll agent says, that car paid for you. And you, what? And it just changes, you know, we'll change the world that way. So enough of my philosophy for the day, right? But so Natalia, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Tom. Thank you for inviting me, being with you tonight. And
yes.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor talking in front of you tonight, being live on Facebook Live with you. And thanks a lot for all your support and warm words, because I can see many comments on Zoom right now. We greatly appreciate that.
Yes.
Like every support, we greatly appreciate that.
Yes.
And that's true that this project that we are going to do right now, that we are launching in February, it's the Ukrainian team behind this project. Yes. And whatever happens in Ukraine right now, we keep fighting, we keep moving forward. It's like there is no time to stand or sit still. It's like we have to keep living, because we are still alive, and just lots of different circumstances, you know.
Yes. So Natalia and her team are putting on the Stop Depression Summit 2023. And I'm going to read a little of how they've described it. Everything you need to know about depression will be covered from A to Z, from every angle and in fine detail. More than 50 experts in depression and best-selling authors. And I scanned this list of who's on her summit. And there's some very impressive people whose lives are devoted to guiding people with their depression, through their depression, or how to look at it, or how to bring balance in your life. There's some impressive people with impressive credentials. I was pleasantly surprised to see that. More than 50 experts in depression and best-selling authors will share their personal and professional experiences on how to overcome depression and help your loved ones to cope with it. So, Natalia, my first question to you is, and it might not be fair to ask the question because of a language difference, and if that's the case, please say so. It's okay.
Okay.
But what's the difference between sadness and depression?
That's a very good question, Dr. Tom. And I ask this question I ask all our speakers who are going to teach at the summit, like what's the difference? And they say different opinion. There are different opinions on that. And like in general, there are lots of contradictions about this topic. So if like my personal opinion, the sadness, it's just the short-term emotional state, and you can easily overcome it. But if we talk about depression, it takes lots of, I would say, strength, and maybe lots of help from a side to get out of this state. And for me, it's a bit long-term emotional state.
Very good answer.
But
Thank you.
What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I think I was depressed when my father died suddenly, and for maybe a year that I'd have waves of sadness. I'm in the midst of talking to someone, I'm in the midst of my family. All of a sudden, my energy would just go, and I would be thinking about my father and how much I missed him. And sometimes tears would come to my eyes. Sometimes I didn't even realize. When I was working on a patient, I was a chiropractor, and sometimes a patient may be lying on the table and I have my hands on their back or on their body. And I notice all of a sudden there's a water stain. A drop of water fell on their shirt. And I'd look up at the ceiling and there's nothing. And it was my tears that I didn't realize. I had tears flowing. And I think of depression is a state of being where it inhibits your daily function, that you're not able to do your daily function. Sadness, my definition, and I'm no expert in this, but sadness is more of a feeling of regret for a situation that you're witnessing, or a feeling of wishing it was different than what it is. Whereas depression is a state of being that hard to keep functioning sometimes when you're in a state of depression. That's how I would think about it. And as questions start coming in, and we'll post them, please put your questions in the Q&A box, and Ann will put them on an Excel document so I can see them and read them all. And before we go to them, Natalia, let me ask, why are you doing this summit? What brought you to do this summit?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. When we thought about the topic of the summit, we made big research of the market. And we found out that no one talks. Let's say that depression is one of the most common mental disorders worldwide. And according to the World Health Organization, nowadays there are more than 300 million people who suffer from depression. And it was one of the topics we considered before launching the summit. And then we started doing the research. And during the research, we found out that no one covers this topic from different angles. There are lots of summits on anxiety, on trauma, on the healing, on the mind, body, soul. And there are very little topics, very little information on depression. And if there are information on depression, it's only available for the helping professionals. And we would love to make this summit not only for helping professionals, but for the public audience, because there are so many people who are depressed and so many people who would love to help someone they love who are depressed, but they just don't know how. And we decided to do the summit on depression.
Good. Excellent. Now, I'm going to do a couple of shout outs here because I see they've come in. Anne Marie says hello from cold Chicago. And thanks, Anne Marie. She says, laughing out loud, I'm there with you on that one. Jane's in England. Hello, Jane. Thank you for staying up to be with us tonight. Let's see. Connie's in North Carolina. Suzanne's in Pennsylvania. Anne's in Seattle. Anne Marie says, my heart goes out to the Ukrainians, sending prayers, love, and light. Thank you. Susanna's in Toronto. Let's see. Anne Marie says, depression is debilitating. Virginia says, hello from Texas. And so, folks, we'll put the link here to the summit. And all of you have had some experience with summits, and most of you have an idea how they run. There are a number of different speakers, and in this case, there's over 50. And not many people have 50 hours, or even if it's a half hour, 25 hours in their life, to watch a summit. But that's not how you have to do it. You register, and I'm going to ask you all to register just to support this movement, supporting the Ukrainian people who are doing this. And when the list comes in as to who's speaking today and the topics, you may say, that sounds really interesting. And if it resonates with you, you might watch that one and it might change your life. So you don't have to watch 57 interviews. You don't have to watch 10 interviews. You register for free, and you can watch anything you want to watch for free. And you just look at the list of who's speaking today, and you say, well, who is that? And you read a little about that person or the title of their talk. If it captures your interest, then it may give you some information that may change your life. So don't think that, oh, there's 50 interviews. I can't watch. You don't have to watch 50 interviews. You might watch 3, and that may really make a difference in how you approach this topic for you, yourself, or for your family. So please register in support of Natalia and her team and what they're trying to do here. I heard stories from our guests last week of people from the Ukraine who are traveling the world now, musicians, and they're playing wherever they can to audiences. And the ticket is going back to Ukraine to help support their families and help support the children and the people that need it there. So register in support, listen to whatever you want to, and don't think that you have to listen to them all. And I don't know if that's might rock Natalia's boat, but what we want is people to support the event, and you listen to whatever calls to you. You don't have to listen to it all.
Yeah, and we want this event to be transformational for you. It's only about supporting Ukraine, but actually there is no information about us. It's a Ukrainian project, because it's registered to another company, and we didn't want to use the situation in Ukraine to go with this project in the world, Mm-hmm. So we just our company. Our team is crazy about the psychology, about helping people, because in Ukraine, we have the Online Institute of Practical Psychology that has been in the market for 9 years. And the founder of this institute is the psychologist. He has PhD, and he is one of the top psychologists among Russian-speaking audience and Ukrainian-speaking audience. So we just wanted to help more people as much as we want, doing things that we love to do. And I love this project, and I highly recommend you to register. Click the link and register, and check your email box, because we sent lots of presents, lots of gifts from our speakers. They are also free. And join our Facebook group, because starting from this week, we are doing pre-summit interviews with with a couple of our speakers. So you will have more information, before summit, because I can imagine that if I'm depressed right now, and I have to wait for 1 more month to listen to this information. So we decided to bring some speakers into our closed Facebook group. So please register, comment. Yeah, that's for free. And we are very welcome you in our community.
That's something new. I don't know that anyone's ever done that before. So congratulations for thinking of that. To have people, in my language, I would say they're starting to cook. They're cooking as they start to get some information. The undercurrent in their consciousness starts bubbling a little bit, and they're thinking about some of the things that they're hearing and they're learning that may help them move through this period of depression if it's something that's immobilizing for them. So way to go. That's a very good idea. Very good idea. We have Nancy in Glenview. Hi, Nancy. I don't know if you know, but my practice was in Glenview for 25 years in Carillon Square. Hello. Glad you're here. Thank you so much. And Connie asks, will Gio make an appearance here tonight? Thank you, Connie. But Gio's back in Costa Rica, waiting for me to come home. Natalia, that's my 2-year-old son.
That's cute.
Who comes every week to say hello, or I pick him up and he looks in the camera and he doesn't even want to say hello. He just wants to go back. But it's always wonderful when he makes an appearance. He's just a beautiful little boy. Now, he doesn't even want to talk to me because I left to come to the United States. So when I call home, Gio, and he turns his head away. like that. But he listens to everything I'm saying, but he keeps his head turned away. That's great. And we love him and how he expresses himself. So in our world, it's perfectly okay for him to be upset and not want to talk to daddy, because daddy's not there right now. And we want to allow him to express himself without suppression. So Marzi doesn't say, Gio, look at your father, take a look at daddy, say hello to. We don't do any of that. And that's some of the patterning that most of us received growing up, where it was not okay to express ourselves in the ways that we were capable of expressing ourselves. And that's why I brought that up, is because that sets the stage for people later in life to develop depression or to develop anxiety. That's some of the things, the parental suppression that many of us may have experienced growing up, that may be contributing triggers to the world of depression that we have. So our first question comes from, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this name correctly, Sanathambi. Very timely initiative. The medical professions have taken it for granted in many countries. Feel lucky to be able to participate. Thank you so much. Thank you. And Jane asks, do you know why some people appear to be able to deal well with dreadful things happening again and again in their lives, when other people seem to completely fall apart over small things? Natalia, do you want to address that?
I will try. I will try to answer this question. And I just want to go a little bit back to your comment about your kid, and that you allow him to express his feelings. I was born in the Soviet Union, and there was no such thing like talking about your emotions and expressing like what you think. It's like you have your opinion. It's like, what's that? So we didn't have that. And now when I talk to the speakers and I go deep into the topic of depression, I analyze all my life, and I ask myself, was it depression? Was I depressed? Or it was just I was lazy, or I was sad? And I couldn't imagine saying to my mom, like, Mom, I'm sad, I'm not going to do any homework because I'm sad or because I'm depressed. It would sound like nonsense. And every time when people told me, like, why are you sad? Are you depressed? It was kind of offensive to me. It's like, no, I am a strong girl. I'm a strong woman. I have my goals. I have to go to the goal to go and achieve those goals. And it's like, no, I'm not depressed. And now I realize that I was afraid to admit that I'm depressed, or that something is going wrong with my emotions, with my thoughts, with my life. And like going back to the question, like why some people appear to be someone dealing well with the depression and someone just fall apart, I think it depends on the person and his thoughts in his head. Because when I didn't know, when I didn't have lots of information about mental health, and you just move forward, you just don't stop. You just go, you wake up, get up, go and do something. And as long as you move, so you keep moving your body and your emotional state changes. And it's, for me, it was like very difficult to do a very tiny first step, but I made myself doing that. So I think it depends on the person, because like, why? Let's ask those people who managed to overcome this state and who did not. And I think we would hear lots of different interesting stories. But for me, it was like, you have no right to stop. This was my story. You have no right to stop. You have to keep moving, no matter what's going in your life. And I can't say that it's good, because sometimes we have to stop, or the life makes you stop. but just keep moving. At least start doing something tiny, teeny tiny step, but just don't stand still.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I
Excellent.
answered this question, but
well, I think you did for yourself and what your experience was. What about everyone out there? Have you had periods or times in your life where you thought maybe you're suffering from depression? And if so, what did you do? How did you address it? What I'm hearing Natalia say is you don't sit there and do nothing. You just keep moving. You just keep doing something. That reminds me of my first consultant while I was still in school. We hired a consultant. We're about to open our practice in the next year. And I'll never forget these words. He said, "It's okay to be stuck in the mud. It's okay. It's not okay to wallow in it," which means you're stuck in the mud. Okay, I'm stuck in the mud, but you keep walking. You keep trying to get out of the mud. You do something. You don't wallow. You don't just sit there and say, "Woe is me, I'm stuck in the mud." That you move. You keep moving. With something, any effort you can. You know what? I'm feeling depressed today. So I don't know what to do. I'm not going to. Well, no, I want to do something. I'll drink a glass of water. That may be a big win. That may be a win for you in that moment, which then leads to the next win. And then the next win. The idea is, as I'm hearing Natalia say it, is I have to keep moving. I have to do something. Natalia, am I understanding you correctly on that?
Yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking about this question, and I mentioned that it depends on the person, but I also think it depends on the people who around this person.
Yes.
Because if you have the supportive environment, it's difficult to stay depressed.
Yeah.
If everyone do something, if everyone support you, or at least you need to have someone to talk to. It just don't keep anything inside yourself.
Mm-hmm. What was some of the surprising things that you learned in these interviews? What was something that you didn't have a clue about? Oh, I didn't know that.
Let me think. Well, it was definitely the interview with Dr. Firestone. She was talking about the ancestors' trauma, and that we can ask the energy from our ancestors. And I found out many things about breathing, that how it's important. And unfortunately, we haven't met with you for our interview. So I'm sure I will find out lots of things about gluten, how our mind connected to our gut. And I think like when you're depressed, in most cases, what are you going to do? You eat something. So you eat. And so I think, well, I'm not, I don't have lots of information on that topic, like on our depression and food, for example, depression and nutrition. And but in general, there was no lots of surprises for me, but because I've been into personal development niche like for many years. But when I listened to our speakers, I mostly heard the same thing that I knew or I heard before, but I had so many insights on the same words that I have already know. And that's why I would love to listen to those speakers once again, because when you listen the same information once again, but you're different, you change daily, and this information is so you have different insights. It's like, oh my God, I've listened to that and I didn't hear that.
Right, I missed that the first time.
Yeah,
yes.
So I think we listen to what we need to listen right now. And in a month, if we listen the same information again, we will be different person, and we will hear something else that we didn't hear like a month ago. Does it make sense? It does. Is
yes,
that clear?
yes. Yeah, that's very clear. And so many people have written into us who have watched one of our programs, whether it was the Gluten Summit or Betrayal, the autoimmune disease solution they're not telling you. Many people said, well, I want to listen to this again. And of course, it's all free, but they then purchased and downloaded all of the interviews so that they could listen to it when they wanted to. And many have written in to tell us that I had no idea about this. And the first time I heard that interview with Dr. So-and-so, I didn't even hear that until I listened to it again, that we hear what we want. And everybody's done the exercise where as children, we're sitting in a circle and the teacher tells the first child something, and the child is supposed to say, pass the message, the exact same message to the next person, and then to the next person, and then to the next person. And by the time it goes around the circle, it's a completely different message, that we don't hear what is being said to us completely. We hear it through our own ears. One of my first mentors, Dr. George Goodhart, would say, look with eyes that see, listen with ears that hear. And I had no idea what that meant. I said, yeah, okay, Dr. George, okay. But I had no idea. Now I do. It took a while for me to understand that I have to put my personal feelings or sense of knowledge to the side to listen to what this person is saying. Doesn't mean I have to act on anything, but we all, I think, don't hear the way completely the messages that are sent to us. So hearing something again is always a great idea.
Yeah, and it's good to be open-minded. And if you don't like the information coming from the speaker, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work or it's bad. And just think, what if it really like that?
Yes.
What if I just try that? And in our Facebook group, there are people who share their personal stories, and lots of not lots of them, but some of them has been experiencing depression for more than 10-20 years, and nothing helps, and they are so disappointed in anything, like in all the tools and techniques. So that's why we brought speakers with different experience, with different tools, and we do hope that one of those tools will be very helpful for them. And if it's my belief, if something doesn't work, try another thing. If another thing doesn't work, try the third thing. If that thing doesn't work, try something else. But there is always something that will help you. So just look for that. And be just open-minded. It's like, okay, it exists. Okay, do I like it? No. Next. So we just move to the next speaker, or to the next tool, to the next technique. But just don't stop. Don't stop and don't be disappointed. It's like, oh, we have speakers, they didn't say me anything, I know everything. So just stop those thoughts in your. They're just the thoughts. Just stop them and be open.
You referenced something that I think some of our listeners might not be familiar with, and that is the ancestral contributions to our current state of mind. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I wouldn't. Honestly, you know what? Because until this summit, I thought that's bullshit. Sorry.
It's okay.
I really thought that it's no, it doesn't exist. It's not for me. It's not that what I'm going even to try to do. But the speaker that we had, she was like Dr. Firestone. She was like full of light, full of energy. It's like, okay, I just close my eyes and I just listen to her voice and do what she asks me to do. And I was so surprised having that energy coming. Maybe they're coming from my previous generations. I don't know, but I had totally different stuff. So I'm not an expert in that. And I have never believed in this topic until the summit. So it was like my, it's not breakthrough, but it was something eye-opening for me. And I consider to go deep and know more about this topic. So yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm not, as I'm not an expert and I have never read more information that a couple of interviews I can't, and I thought that it was BS. So
you know, that's really great. I like you. We'd be good friends because I said, can you talk about that? You said, no. I'm no expert in that. It's bullshit. So that's very good.
But
very good. Thank you so much.
That's true. And I admit that. And
Yeah.
I know that that's why I advise people, just if you think, I know, if even a year ago, even a day ago, you thought it's BS, and today it might be not BS at all, because you will find your teacher, you will find the speaker that you can hear, and you might start thinking that, what if? And then just try. So yeah.
You know, we know now then there's some really good evidence to this concept of the health lineage of your family. And it comes down through the mother, because baby is developing inside mother's body, and baby's microbiome is most connected to mother's microbiome, especially if it's a natural childbirth. And memory is housed somewhere in our DNA. I mean, why is it? My friend was talking the other day here. He lives here in the mountains outside of San Diego, and they have rails here. And how is it that one day he was clearing some brush and he had his legs straddled, grabbing the brush after he had cut it with the chainsaw, and holding the chainsaw in one hand, grabbed the brush and threw it. And right there was a coiled rattlesnake. And it was instantaneous jumping before his brain recognized it was a rattlesnake. Something inside of him knew and just jumped right away. And that's ancestral information. That's what we learned over centuries to protect us and save our lives. Is there certain things that you need to be aware of for survival, and it's passed on in the mother's microbiome and the DNA of the microbiome that the baby has from the mother's lineage. So there's some pretty good evidence about that out there. We have a question from. Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, and I know about that, and I read about that. And anyway, my logical brain didn't accept that information.
Yes.
Until I told myself, okay, what if? Just stop saying that it's BS. What if? And you don't have any expectations. You don't wait for any expectations, and that's like, okay, just be open-minded. And yeah, I think I can see a couple of questions here. Would you love to cover?
Yes, let's do Anne Marie here.
Yeah,
says,
very good comment.
I feel a constant low-grade depression. Haven't really been able to experience the full joy the way I used to. Have also been extremely depressed in a suicidal way, all due to chronic Lyme disease and autoimmune conditions for 25 years. I've felt since the depression started that if I don't keep moving and find even the smallest thing to be grateful for each day, that I will die. I don't allow telling myself I'm depressed. Just keep focusing on something positive.
I would love to comment it from my personal experience.
Please, yes, please.
And when I, especially the last line, when I don't allow telling myself something, what I do, I allow. So I learn how to allow telling myself the truth. It's like, okay, yes, I'm depressed, or I'm sad, or life is falling apart. So that's the truth. And then I say, and what am I going to do about that? Because when I kept focusing only on positive things and I denied that truth, in a while I know if in a while I was depressed, but I was sad. I was sad and I didn't feel like I'm aligned with myself, with my inner self. And now it's like, okay, so what's the truth? The truth. So the truth, I'm depressed. And what are you going to do about that? What are you going to do today? Would I like to dance? Would I like to read? Would I like to go for a walk? Would I like to talk to my dog? So, and what then? Because we admitted that, and what are we going to do with the information that we just admitted? But the thing is, for me, it's very important not to deny the truth, not to deny my thoughts, not to deny my feelings, and anything that's happening in my life. So I accept the truth, I accept the clarity, and I ask myself, so what's next? And then you can create, like, you can make up a plan, or you can do something. So that's my experience.
Mm-hmm. That's a admirable approach to have, and I personally agree with you completely on that. And sometimes it takes a lot of strength to do that, to say, okay, there is some truth to this for me, and what am I going to do about it? That's an excellent way of beginning to get unstuck. You might be stuck in the mud, but you're not wallowing in it now, because you're looking for, what action can I take? Very, very good point. Let's see, we have a question here from Priscilla on Facebook. My cousins have just taken possession of 2 boys, ages 2 and 4. Their ancestors relinquished custody due to issues surrounding meth addiction. My cousins are doing the right stuff by providing Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The boys are toilet trained and off of processed food. Since the boys are trauma survivors, I've suggested they eventually go gluten and cow dairy free. My question is, do functional medicine providers work with children? Yes, Priscilla, absolutely. Absolutely. It depends on the practitioner, but yes, that certainly is not uncommon to find functional medicine oriented pediatricians that specialize in pediatric care. Let's see, and I will think of a name of 1 or 2 as we keep moving forward. I can't remember right now, but I'll look it up while we're talking. Jane on Zoom says, do you know why some people appear to be able to deal with dreadful? Oh, okay, we answered that question. Tina asks, what are your thoughts on gluten and depression? Okay, I guess I'll start with that one. I was talking earlier today with someone about that, about the neurological complications of gluten-related disorders. And there are a number of different mechanisms by which gluten and wheat in general can affect your brain. One of them, 73% of people whose immune system are fighting wheat, fighting gluten, 73% of them have something called hypoperfusion. Now, that's a technical geek word, but what it means, if everyone would cross your legs, Natalia, could you cross your legs for a minute, please? Everyone who's, if you're driving, don't do it. But for everyone else, cross your legs, leave them like that for 3 hours. Now stand up and run. You can't. Thank you. Uncross your legs. You can't, because there's not enough blood. hypoperfusion is a lack of blood flow into the brain. And what they have found is that people who get better from seizures, epileptics, usually children, but even adults, who go gluten-free and the seizures go away, they had hypoperfusion in the area of the brain where seizures develop. People who had brain fog and difficulty thinking, and they felt like they were losing their memory, they had hypoperfusion in the central area, the parietal areas. But 73% of everyone that had a neurological symptom and they had hypoperfusion, 73% of them had hypoperfusion, a lack of blood flow in the frontal lobes. And that's where depression comes from, is in the frontal lobes of the brain. When that area is not functioning adequately, depression and anxiety can develop, one or the other or both. So we know that 3 out of 4 people with a sensitivity to wheat will have a lack of blood flow in the area of the brain that causes depression or anxiety. That's 3 out of 4. So that's just one mechanism. There are 6 mechanisms that have been identified. I'm not going to go through them all, but there are 6 that have been identified so far of how wheat may affect your brain and brain function, including depression and anxiety. Natalia, is there anything you'd like to add to that question?
No, no, I'm afraid not to that question.
Okay. What do you think about chemical imbalances in the body and in the brain causing depression?
Oh, that's very difficult question to me, because I'm not the, I have no medical background, and I think that that it's very important to know yourself and your body, and and it's very important to do check up on your body from time to time, just to know what doesn't work inside you. Because one thing, when we talk about feelings and thoughts and emotions, and remove your thoughts, you will be feeling fine. But another thing, when there is some imbalance of in your body, and I think that you have to ask for help. But yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. My question to you would be, do you recall if any of the people, the experts who were interviewed, talked about chemical imbalances, environmental toxins, and things like that?
Yeah, we will have one of the speakers. She will talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in answer to that question, which came from Instagram, Health Coach on Instagram, yeah, there's a lot of evidence of environmental toxins impacting on brain function, a tremendous amount. I'll give you one example, and it's not necessarily depression, it's brain function. But this study just looked at that function. They looked at IQ. They took 346 mothers, pregnant women in Chicago in 2016, and they did urine analysis in the 8th month of pregnancy, and they measured 5 phthalates. Phthalates are chemicals used to mold plastic. And there are many different phthalates in our environment we're exposed to. They just looked at 5. And they found every woman had phthalates in her urine, and they divided them into fourths, the lowest fourth, the next, the third, and the highest. And then they followed the offspring of those pregnancies for 7 years. When the children turned 7 years old, they did Wechsler IQ tests on them, the official IQ test. And there's not much in medicine that's all or every. This was an every. Every child whose mother was in the highest quartile of phthalates in urine in pregnancy because of their exposure to plastics over a
Mhm.
lifetime. Every child whose mother was in the highest levels compared to the children whose mothers were in the lowest level. Every child in the highest level, their IQ was 7 points lower than these children whose mothers were in the lowest quartile of phthalates in urine in pregnancy. 7 points. And that doesn't mean anything to anyone. It doesn't sound like much, but a 1 point difference in IQ is noticeable. And a 7 point difference is the difference between a child who works really hard, gets straight A's, and a child who works really hard gets straight C's. This child doesn't have a chance in hell of ever doing outstanding work in school because their brain never developed properly. Now just go back to Google and type in phthalates, PHTHALATES, and neurogenesis, nerve growth. Here come the studies of how phthalates can inhibit brain growth, brain cell growth. So those children whose mothers were highest in phthalates, their brain didn't develop properly. So their IQs are lower. And I'm sure the study, and I just can't tell you the studies off the tip of my tongue on phthalates and depression. Just go to Google and type in phthalates and depression and see what comes up. And then type in environmental toxins and depression. And you'll see about heavy metals, lead and mercury. And if you have high lead levels, how that contributes to depression. So the answer to the question, health coach, is absolutely, they are related. Absolutely, without a doubt. Connie's on Zoom and she asks, are there any breathing techniques that help with depression?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are.
And do you know what some of them are? Can you describe some of them?
I would suggest Connie to attend the summit, to register for the summit, and we will have some great speakers who will teach you breathing techniques.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great, thank you for that. Jane on Zoom asks, I have a friend who often has panic attacks. He suddenly panics if he's in a shop and has to get out of the shop immediately, but he can't explain what he's actually panicking about. Is there a way to help him? Yes, there is. And it goes back to the principles of functional medicine, which is you have to identify where is the inflammation coming from, because every how do I say this? The Center for Disease Control tells us that 14 out of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases, everything except unintentional injuries, accidents, everything else is a chronic inflammatory disease. And panic attacks are a chronic inflammatory condition. So as is depression. Depression is a chronic, just Google depression and inflammation. Here come the studies. Google panic attacks and inflammation. Here come the studies. So the answer is yes. But what do you do with that? You have to identify where is the inflammation coming from. You can't take a pill for panic attacks and then keep living the lifestyle that's fueling the inflammation in your body. You have to identify where is the inflammation coming from. Is it from gluten? Perhaps. Is it from dairy? Perhaps. An immune reaction to dairy often affects the brain, often. Is it from heavy metals, lead poisoning or mercury toxicity? Perhaps. Is it from environmental toxins, phthalates, petroleum products, toxic air? Perhaps. We now know that every child they test in Mexico City has evidence of the mechanisms that cause Alzheimer's. Every child that they check, because the air pollution is so bad and the children are inhaling this air with all this particulate matter that goes in the lungs, into the bloodstream, straight up to the brain. And when they breathe it, it goes up the nose also, straight up to the brain, and it creates inflammation. and that inflammation is going to cause tissue damage in your brain. So the answer is absolutely yes. And the path to get out of those panic attacks, some people need medication for a period of time to function in life. You need medication, you take it. But you also want to be looking, where is the inflammation coming from? And that's explained in great detail, and where the majority of triggers of inflammation in the brain are coming from is explained in great detail in my book, You Can Fix Your Brain. That's the title of the book, You Can Fix Your Brain. And I made it really simple like that on the title. And I argued with the publishers at Rodale Press for 2 weeks. They wanted a different title. No, You Can Fix Your Brain. That's the title, because that's the message. You can, but you have to learn, where is it coming from? Where is the inflammation coming from? That's the big picture. Quincy, Gracie's mom, has a comment here. Our family in Iowa. Gluten definitely has an impact on my brain and mood. So grateful to have made this realization. While eating 100% gluten-free initially was a lot of work, my body and mind feel so good. If you're on the fence about a gluten-free diet, give it a try and see how you feel. Maybe even write down what you've eaten and how you're feeling, both mentally and physically. Really good suggestion, Quincy, really good. Fana, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, on Facebook, is there a link on Summit, and will Summit be replayed in the email? Yes, the link is posted in the chat here on Facebook, and if you're on Instagram, I'm not sure. And how do they find the link if they're on Instagram?
I'll go ahead and post it, Dr. Tom, but it is on all other social channels.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. And Amal has a comment of when we're talking about ancestral input. Visiting the sins of the fathers to the third and the fourth generation. Our DNA is working out deep patterns for at least 2 generations. Environmental toxins in pregnancy take at least 3 generations to transmute. Well said, Amal, and that's very accurate. Lots of good science on this, mostly with animals, but some with humans also on environmental toxins. The classic one is moms who were pregnant that were given DES in pregnancy to minimize their nausea. And the offspring, the daughters, had a very high risk of estrogen-related cancers, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, if their moms had taken this medication during pregnancy. So it moved right on to the next generation, the toxic environments that mom was exposed to. Malena's on Instagram. She says, so those panic attacks could come from air pollution. Yes, yes. Natalia, in your summit, do you have experts who are talking about environmental toxins and how they may affect our emotions?
We do, and one of the experts will talk about eco environment and depression.
Marvelous, marvelous. A comment on Instagram, I've been off dairy 11 years. Other day I got a latte and they forgot and put in regular milk. Been depressed all week. When will that lift? Drink lots of water. It depends on what you have access to. But first, flush it out. So you've activated an immune response. It can last a couple of weeks, but you can minimize it pretty quickly if you, let's see, you can take some binders. That charcoal is a very common one that people take when they've eaten something that they know is not good for them. Charcoal acts like a big sponge in your gut. Just go to your pharmacy and ask the pharmacist, what can I take to absorb toxins in my gut? I've heard that charcoal can be helpful, and that's safe. and that's one thing you can do. There's a number of steps that you can take. It's the same whether it's dairy or gluten. When you've been glutened, that term, there are a number of steps you can take, and it just depends on the support system you have. And in this example, you may not have a well-organized support system to deal with a crisis like this, but as you start to research this for the next time, hoping there won't be a next time, but if there is, you'll be much better equipped at home to deal with it. So sponges that are absorbed in the gut, montemorillite, bentonite, zeolite, charcoal. These are all things that act like sponges to absorb toxins. But if it's been a few days, there won't be as much of that left in your gut now. What you have is the inflammatory cascade. Sometimes CBD helps with that. There's a product called KBD, that's kava and CBD together. And Anne will put the link in here to that, KBD. It's a marvelous product for anxiety and for when our immune system has been activated and it's affecting our brain function, whether it's depression or anxiety. KBD is, and it's a very safe product. Kava is extremely safe. And it's a mixture of kava and CBD, and it's from Sunhorse. So Anne will post the link in here too for that. But those things will help. Drink the adequate amount of water that you should be. And what is that? We've heard things like, well, everybody should drink 8 glasses a day. Well, that's utter nonsense, because some people weigh 105 pounds and some people weigh 200 pounds. They're supposed to drink the same amount of water? And the answer is no. So it's 1/3 of an ounce per pound body weight. And if you are sweating a lot, whether it's exercise or saunas, it's 1/2 ounce per pound body weight. So the more you sweat, the more you lose moisture, the more you have to replenish. So somewhere between 1/3 to 1/2 ounce of water per pound body weight. The other thing to do for this person, there's no name here with this person. The other thing to do is to walk. Just go out for walks 30 minutes a day or more. The value of walking is that it mobilizes and gets everything moving in your body. It gets your lymphatic system moving so that you can flush and detox better. So I hope that helps. There's a lot of other things that could be done. Your detox capabilities should be evaluated, and you need a functional medicine practitioner for that. Natalia, is there anything that you would add to this question about being exposed to dairy and still depressed a week later?
Well, I don't think I dare to add something to the experts' comments. Dr. Tom, this is your niche. Okay. You are the expert in that. So I have no comments. I was listening and absorbing all the words that you just told.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. We're 5 minutes over the hour. I mean, it goes so fast. It just goes so fast. So everyone, please register for this event. If you watch one lecture out of 50, you're supporting the event, and that one topic that captures your interest is exactly the one that may have a big impact for you. So as I suggest, you pay for the car behind you in the toll booth, or you give a homeless person some food. As someone commented, they gave some homeless person a bag of food. Support the people that are doing the things that you want to support in life. In this case, we have an entire team that has worked for a year, close to a year, interviewing over 50 people on this topic of depression and how to deal with it in a more balanced, holistic way. So please register. And Natalia, thank you so much for being here today. Yes,
thank you everyone who stayed with us.
Yes, yes.
And thank you for your support, guys. Thank you very much.